Okay, so this is part two of me trying to rehearse and condense everything a human wants to say from now 10 minutes into 5 minutes, or it'll be like 20 or I probably could speak for hours on the subject. Not that I'm the most knowledgeable person around there, but one of the issues that I felt was super paramount, which some people who've seen me at City Council know that I've spoken a little bit and skipped the surface of issues of neurodiversity, acceptance, as well as anti-psychiatry. And the one thing I wanted to say is that this sudden rush to have a bunch of Victorian pseudoscientific jargon bandied about by a bunch of semi-illiterate barbarians who tend to resort to extreme violence is, to me, quite conflicted, because I don't even have a healthy trust for psychiatry itself, much less police officers impersonating a psychiatrist by making determinations of, is this person mentally ill? Is this person not mentally ill? And I think in a lot of ways that prevention is the key to societal health as a whole. And if anything, we should diagnose ourselves mentally ill as a society, that we cannot eliminate poverty and eliminate economic injustice and the suffering and hunger and all kinds of deprivations, from dentistry to eyeglasses and all the things that people are hurting for and wanting for, including their own personal safety and freedom from bodily harm. And the amount of fear and paranoia a police brutality victim has to endure is a life sentence. The officers who perpetrate that brutality are not given a life sentence. And in terms of a brutalizing society, one of the pieces I was writing, I tried to convey it syntactically in the piece, but it was like an asterisk, and it was about this ironic situation where police are beating people to the point of inducing a severe post-traumatic stress disorder response. Whereas that person, if taken to a community center or a library or a flourishing, beautiful, idealistic utopia like you might find in the Pearl District, if they had a chance to live in that life, they might be perfectly well adjusted, and their only problem might be like drinking a little bit too much beer. Whereas people who are afflicted with extreme poverty have so many life stressors that are dragging them down. And when the police brutality comes, it pushes them to a very, very, very dark place. So the Portland police are both supposed to diagnose this so-called thing called mental illness, while also perpetrating such extreme violence that they are creating illness, creating disability, creating depression, creating post-traumatic stress. To me, it gives them far too much power. They have the latitude to abuse, but they also are they're the doctor and the assailant at the same time, which is completely medically inappropriate. And if the Portland police were practicing their beatings and bullyings and kickings and shootings as a medical treatment, that would be considered barbaric malpractice. And another, along the idea of neurodiversity, the neurodiversity acceptance movement is popular among high-functioning autism spectrum people who hold the stigmatizing language of psychiatry to be condescending and ridiculing, pejorative, and creating a minority class who are essentially a second or a third class citizen. And when the mental health groups or profiteers who are moving in on that 26 million come in with their kind of glib, like slapdash of like, oh, give us the money, we'll treat and we'll fix. There isn't an oversight of them. There was recently a wrongful death lawsuit settled up in the Oregon State Hospital, and that kind of abuse where patients are abused to death is tantamount to torture in the definition of Juan Mendez, United Nations Special Rapporteur on Torture. When the medical abuses of a person become so severe that they are torture, why are we giving a blank check and total immunity to another field of essentially subcontractors who are supposed to deal with our economically deprived people or deal with our people who have social stresses, and that they just become the next level of immunity? Where are the malpractice suits? Where are the drug litigations when there's dangerous side effects by these various medications that are being promoted? For instance, with traumatic brain injury, it is highly recommended that traumatic brain injury not be given antipsychotics, whereas psychiatry is not necessarily expert in traumatic brain injury research, and there are many conflicting opinions about what is the best kind of medication. Some blood pressure medications may reduce symptoms of TBI without leaving the extreme lethargy and the sexual side effects and that sort of thing. So this sort of blind acceptance and pushing of medication as the only reality for people who maybe they actually need like a dentist, like a different kinds of basic needs. Their basic needs are being unmet, and that is creating a manifestation of pain and suffering within them. Also wanted to speak about sexual harassment in the force. I was extremely appalled by the sexual harassment, which had the condonement of the mayor, seemed unmotivated to do anything about it. There's also seems to be little interest in gender parity in the Portland police, and I think with gender parity in policing, we would have a better and more diversified response to things like sexual assault. I think male sexual assault victims are not given a platform on which to stand. They're not empowered. There aren't centers for them, and the suffering that they undergo is not being met. The ADA rights to access to social and public entities under Title II are not being met by the Portland police. And when people need to make a crime report, they should not fear their police will beat them up because of their disabilities when they actually need to report a crime. And that if the crime reporting had been there, this person might not have even been perceived as an aggressor when they were actually a victim of crime. And then another thing I wanted to talk about, victim protection. So $26 million is going to the profiteers who are moving in to industrialize the community. But each and every victim that's out there, whatever they've done, if they've needed massage, they've needed to take time off from work, they can't think straight, they have nightmares, they have flashbacks, they are experimenting with different kinds of herbal medication or different things that help them. Where is that coming from? The police inflict the damage and they refuse to pay to play. They destroy people's bodies, destroy people's minds, and they refuse to get involved with those victims and those victims' families. And the very few successful litigants who have pursued their police brutality claims or wrongful death claims are to be applauded, but not every victim is that lucky. And a lot of families are being gouged by the city every time that this kind of brutality goes unchecked and unmonetized and non-remunerated. And that callous disregard for the financial toll upon the families is something that needs to be assessed too. And I don't think it is adequately assessed by the settlement at all. I guess I'll stop there. Let's see.